Yes, we are in.
Yay. Okay.
Yes.
We just needed your presence here.
All right, thank you, Lance.
Sounds good. You're welcome. Let me know if you need any other help.
All right, thank you. So we can have everyone sign it.
that we asked you to bring. And each piece of evidence has a unique barcode number, is that right?
That's correct, ma'am.
So the piece of evidence that I'm asking about now has the last four digits of 3534.
That's correct, ma'am.
And is that in your possession at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please locate that piece of evidence? And is that piece of evidence located in the packaging that we marked as exhibit 126 yesterday?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please open that and locate the piece of evidence we're talking about?
I have it.
Okay. For the record, I'm marking that piece of evidence as State's Exhibit 126A. Do you have in your possession the second piece of evidence with the last four digits of the barcode 4528? It's in here.
There's nothing else there. Yes.
Yeah.
So this will be, so that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
And this is it.
Yes. so
Okay.
This is barcode 45. 45, yes.
452. And for the record, I'm marking this exhibit 126B. Okay, so could you please locate the third item of evidence we asked you to bring?
Yes, that would be receipts 4927.
4927.
No.
So
2867.
Okay. So we'll move on to the fourth piece of
I'm
evidence.
sorry, Jen, I couldn't hear what's going on. Did he not find something or?
All right, could everyone please make sure you speak in the microphones? I know you all are looking at items and turning away from the microphone, but if you can make sure that you speak into the microphone, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear. I'm sorry.
No
So
problem.
we couldn't at this moment locate the third piece of evidence we asked him to bring, so we're moving on to the fourth piece.
Was the third piece inside the big bag that you opened? Or
No, it's
supposed-
not.
Okay. So, yeah, I can't see what's going on. Okay.
And defense, if you need to.
Can I
defense, if
approach
you
it?
need
That's-
to
I'm
move-
sorry, I
Yes.
just can't see through all the.
So we're just marking these pieces. Okay, so the fourth piece,
Fourth piece is gonna be. It'd be 2 buccal swabs.
don't read what it is.
Okay.
So the last 4 digits of the
It'd
barcode,
be 9483.
yes, sir. And we already marked this yesterday as it states exhibit 129. And the fifth piece of evidence, the last 4 digits are 2739. Can you locate that without identifying? And that should be it.
2739.
And we are marking that states exhibit 126. And the sixth piece of evidence we asked you to bring with the last 4 digits of the barcode 2866. And it should be in that big.
286. This is it.
And we are marking that piece of evidence states exhibit 126D. And the seventh piece of evidence we asked you to bring with the last four digits of the barcode 2867. That's already been marked as State's Exhibit 128. And the ninth piece of evidence we asked you to bring with the last four digits of the barcode 5846 has already been marked State's Exhibit 127. And the 10th piece of evidence we asked you to bring with the last four digits of the barcode 2555 has already been marked State's Exhibit 125. One moment. And the eighth piece of evidence we asked you to bring with the last four digits of barcode 3940. I am marking as State's Exhibit 126. So for the record, there are three pieces of evidence in State's Exhibit 126 that we are not marking for identification. And you will retain those. Sorry. That's a witness, Judge.
All right, defense.
So what piece was it that got lost? I overheard something say we can't find that one. So what evidence did you lose?
I didn't lose any of them.
Well, did she not tell you you can't, did you not tell her, or she not tell you we can't find that one?
Yes,
So since, you know, they chose you to be the keeper of the gate, which one did y'all lose? I won't say you, y'all say y'all. Which one did y'all lose? What's missing?
what last four was that? On the barcode?
I don't know. I couldn't hear. That's why I had to go up there.
Your Honor, may I answer?
No, I mean, he's on cross-examination. So you can ask your question, Mr. Barker.
You don't know which, you're not sure which piece you lost?
Sir, this isn't my evidence, sir.
Well, it is, sir, with all
I
due respect,
transport the evidence, it's not my evidence.
it
So
is
what-
now. They
Yes,
have
it
made
is,
you,
yes.
they have made this your evidence. If something's lost, sadly, it's
I
on
don't
you
think
now.
it's lost, I think it's somewhere within all this, sir. So we just have to locate it.
Well, have you testified in a trial before?
I have, sir.
Are you familiar with the terms chain of custody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so for reasons unknowns to me, they've made you the beginning of the link of the chain of custody for all this evidence.
Yes, sir.
So if something's missing, I have to, you're the one that has to tell me what it's missing and why it's missing.
That's correct, sir.
So what is missing? I know I heard somebody say something is missing, so what is it? And if we have to stop and you need to go through all that stuff again, we can, but I need to know what's missing because I couldn't hear what she said.
Then we're probably gonna have to do that,
Okay,
so we can inventory it one more time.
okay, well, take your list and go through it all and tell me what's missing. I'm sorry, Judge, I just couldn't hear what she said when she said something missing. I think it, try tag number 4927.
Receipts.
See if that seems to be the one. Can I approach the witness while I was doing that?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. No, what? Okay. Do your notes reflect? Was that item ending in 927? Was that in its own separate container? Or was it inside one of the containers that you opened either yesterday or today? If you can tell us.
Let me just refer back. to-
Yes, sir, please.
I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
It's not within the, this package with the several items of that. It's not within that. It was separate.
So it was a separate item that got lost. Okay, so that concern you?
Yes, sir.
We're sitting here in a capital murder trial where this guy's looking at life without parole. And the answer is, well, the evidence is lost. That concerns me. Do you share my concern?
Yes, sir.
And I guess it would be impossible to know how it got lost or where it got lost.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, well, I guess the next question you're probably asking yourself is, good Lord, what else is lost? I mean, I'm sure we're all asking, I mean, is there, what else, do you know what else is lost? Is there any way for you to tell, or if it's lost, we don't know?
We don't know.
Now, would you agree with me with evidence is lost in a case, it casts doubt on all evidence that is collected?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Now, the evidence you did collect and the pictures you showed yesterday, who was it that put all the stuff back on the bed?
That would have been Detective Mike Garcia.
So and do you know why he would have tampered with the scene or moved the evidence around before it was collected?
Oh, I
Your Honor, I'm
don't
gonna
know.
object to defense's characterization of processing the crime scene as tampering.
I can explain, Judge.
Overruled. Can you
Um,
Answer your question, please.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as states. Left my glass. 31. I think it's wrong. I'm sorry. Sorry. States 31. And this picture appears to show, have you seen a picture like this before?
No, sir.
Okay, would you agree with me that in this pic, it appears to be the same scene you went to another day, right?
No, sir. I never saw them.
Okay, right. But in this picture, states 31, would you agree with me, this pillows and bedspread stuff, all this stuff's on the floor with the body?
I don't know, sir. I wasn't.
You're looking at the picture. Look at this
I'm looking
picture.
at the picture,
Okay.
but I wasn't. At the-
Do you agree with me that in this picture, the pillows, whatever these bed sheets are, everything are all on the floor with the body?
That's what it looks like.
Okay. And do you remember the pictures you took and you showed yesterday where everything was piled up on the bed?
I didn't think
The ones you introduced them yesterday as accurately reflecting the scene.
they're not my pictures. They're Detective Mike. The state from our report that I collected evidence and that was.
Okay. I'm gonna have to help. I'm sorry. Does your screen show the pictures up there where you are, sir, so you can see them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now this is what's been previously marked is State's Exhibit 31. And you agreed with me, I'll turn it around so it's, I think I got it backwards like that. You agreed with me that all the bedding in that picture are on the floor with the body, correct?
It looks like it's
Okay.
partial.
Now, yesterday, on direct examination, the state showed you a bunch of pictures. And we agree, you didn't take them. The retired evidence Garcia took the pictures, right?
That's correct.
But you testified under oath that these pictures accurately reflected the scene you found when you went to that day. Do you remember
From what
saying
I-
that
from-
yesterday?
Yes, sir. From
Okay.
what I saw, they depicted from what I saw the next day.
So let's look at States 116. Voila, where's all the bedding now?
It's on the bed.
It's on the bed. Now. I'm old school, but when I come to a crime scene and evidence is supposed to be on the floor and it's been moved somewhere else, despite their objections, I call that somebody has tampered with the scene. Somebody has moved stuff around, right?
Sir, all I can testify is what I saw that.
Right, no, I
So I
agree.
do not know what happened previously to that.
You know that somebody picked it up off the floor and moved it
Oh,
onto the bed.
I don't know, sir. I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I
You
witnessed that scene. I witnessed that scene the way I saw it when I got to it.
Correct,
So that's all I can testify to.
correct. And I showed you the picture from the day before where the stuff was on the floor. And you testified yesterday under oath that the picture you looked at, specifically 116, accurately represents the scene as you found it. And if that's the case, somebody moved all the stuff.
Sir, I did not see that picture of the body.
I understand that, sir. You said in 31, it's on the floor, and in 116, it's on the bed,
I didn't
correct?
say that, sir. I did not say that. You said that.
Okay, let's start again. States 31.
You asked me for opinion and I gave it. You
I'm
said-
asking you for what you see. Do you see a body laying on a floor?
Okay, yes, I've never seen this picture until today.
Correct.
Yes, I see a body on the floor.
And next to the floor, do you see a bunch of, on the floor, next to the body, a bunch of bedding?
Yes, I see something, some
Okay.
brown, some dark bedding and some white.
Well, does it look, yesterday, you said under oath without a doubt that this picture is the stuff you collected.
That's correct.
Okay, now, either one, you took stuff from a different room, or two, somebody moved it from the floor to the bed.
Sir, I didn't do anything, sir. This is the way I depicted the scene. That's what I collected.
I'm not saying you tampered with it. I'm asking you, do you know who tampered with the crime scene?
I don't know I don't know any of that. I just know what I saw at that scene when I arrived the day after, apparently from the murder.
But you do agree with me that the stuff appears to have been moved.
Yes, because you just depicted that in the picture.
Okay. Now, in your training, when you're collecting evidence, is it common practice to move evidence around before you tag it with the placards and collect it?
Sir, it's never common practice for us. Who's there prior EMS, whatever the situation is there, sometimes it's not always the way the original scene was, because EMS goes there, they're trying to look at the body and determine if something happened or whatever, trying to save the life or whatever.
So yesterday, you said you knew that Bertina had been there the day before taking pictures, correct?
I
I
didn't.
thought you said you knew an evidence
No, I
technician.
didn't say that.
Okay. Do you know evidence technician Bertina?
He's a sergeant now, yes, he's
Okay.
yes.
If he testified that this picture states 31 accurately reflects the scene as it was, do you have any reason to disbelieve that?
I don't.
When you got, do you know how many people went into the apartment between before you had a chance to collect evidence?
Sir, I have no knowledge.
Okay. As an evidence technician, is it important for you to know who's had access to your crime scene prior to you collecting evidence?
If that information is pertinent, yes.
In a capital murder case that happened in 2015, even back 6 years ago, wouldn't that still have been good to know who's been in my crime scene? Right?
I would say yes.
Okay. Now, sometimes they keep a list of everybody that's been into the crime scene. Did they do that? In this case, did they do that?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Sometimes when the police leave an apartment, they go to the trouble to lock the door and secure it, put up some police tape and all that rubbish. In this case, did they do that?
No, sir.
Okay. So not only can you not tell us who moved the evidence around, you can't even tell us who was in that apartment overnight.
I
Can you?
have no idea, sir.
What else was in that? It looks to me in that picture of the beer can. Remember the beer can picture?
Yes, sir.
And once again, I know you didn't take the picture, but you said that accurately reflects the scene as you found it, correct?
I was referring to the beer can.
Okay. And that, and may I approach again, Judge?
Yes.
Do you remember that picture, sir? I think it is number, I'll never find it now. Let's see. The rubbish. Would you agree with me that in that picture, there appears to be more than one beer can? Okay. Did you only take the top beer can, or did you go to the trouble to actually go into the trash and see what else was in there?
Yeah, there was a second beer can. I believe it was another.
Was it collected as well?
That was correct. Yes, sir.
I don't, okay, so Miller High Life, is it the same one? So there's one Ice House, one Miller High Life, right?
That's correct.
Did you process both of them for prints?
Yes, sir.
And am I correct in understanding you were unable to identify or locate any legible prints on either one of the beer cans?
That's correct, sir.
Now, that's not unusual, is it?
No,
I know lay people tend to think fingerprints are everywhere. Actually, it's difficult to get prints, isn't it?
that is correct.
So in the absence of prints, would you agree with me? Technology has allowed us now to see who drank that beer. If you can have the can, you can get a DNA sample from the can, then compare it to potential other known DNA samples.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, obviously, that's not something you do, correct?
We've done it in the past, but I know that there's been different direction as far as maybe leaving it to the lab to actually do it.
But your method of procurement, or when you take it out of the trash and you put it into the bags, that's done. So if there is serological evidence or DNA evidence, it's allowed to be maintained in that bag without somebody messing with it,
Yes,
right?
sir. We're trying to protect as much evidence as possible.
Correct. The evidence that's lost, was that evidence you actually collected?
No, sir.
You know who collected that evidence allegedly?
I have no idea.
Okay. Is it, to your knowledge, but it is evidence that is allegedly related to this case, correct?
I transported here from academics, so yes.
Okay, now I'm confused. You transported it here and then you lost it, or it was lost and you could never find it to bring it here?
Sir, to be honest, I don't know what happened to it. I really don't.
All right, that's all I'll stop at that, Judge.
Stay.
Just read the judge.
So investigator Hurtado, the piece of evidence that the state asked you to bring here today were receipts, is that correct?
Oh, that objection. He doesn't know what, he didn't collect it. He lost it. He doesn't know what it is.
Hold on.
Everyone, let's remember, Brenna can only take down one person at a time. That objection will be overruled. Ask your next question, please.
So that piece of evidence that we asked you to bring, it's not in your
It's not in that pile of evidence that you were just looking at, is that correct?
I didn't see it then.
Now, we also asked you to bring several other pieces of evidence, correct?
That's correct.
And you did bring every other piece that we asked you, is that right?
That's correct.
And is it fair to say that the evidence that we asked you to bring is not all the evidence in this case, right?
That's correct.
And to your
Objection
knowledge,
leading.
Sustained.
I would drop objection. To your knowledge, where is that other evidence located? The evidence that you did not bring
Objection,
today?
that's gonna call for speculation. He's already told us it's lost.
Your Honor, Your Honor, I'm asking about the additional evidence that you did not bring today. And
All right, if you can re-ask your question, please.
I'm sorry, Judge Willis.
If you can ask that question then.
Sure. So the other evidence that we didn't ask you to bring, all the other evidence in this case, if you know, where is that located?
It's located at 555 Academic Court.
And is that the SAPD property room?
That's correct.
And is that a secure location?
Yes, it is.
Now, in a capital murder investigation, are there a lot of people, does that require a lot of people to investigate the scene?
Yes.
Objection, that calls for speculation.
Hello.
You can answer.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have any personal knowledge? When did you arrive to process the scene?
On the 22nd of October.
And do you have any personal knowledge of how the scene was secured the day prior?
I have no information prior to what I told you that there was new information about the actual scene. And that's why we went out there the following day.
That's the way it's judged.
Defense.
No questions.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Subject to recall, please.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. Only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state and attorneys for the defense. And you may be subject for recall, so please be ready.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, state calls Dr. William McLean.
Excuse me. I don't think. Just one moment. All right, please take the seat here, please.
Because now, whose custody is it in the States?
Mhm.
Are they leaving it in the custody of the state? Or-
Excuse me, could I have both parties approach? Yes.
Can we lower that light when it's not being used?
Yes, most definitely. Thank you for letting know. I said I would always try to pay attention to when
Just
you're
push it
raising your
down
hand.
for your- right.
No.
where your thumb was, that little match right there, and just pull it.
Oh,
Yeah, don't touch the
Oh,
top
I
part.
got you. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. If you touch it for different places, sometimes it damages the equipment. You're just supposed to use the hook. But nobody ever tells us that. All right, if you could raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand, please. Do not touch the microphone. If you could state your name for the record and spell it.
William McLean, MCCLAIN.
All right, state.
Sir, if you would introduce yourself to the jury.
Sure, I'm Dr. William McLean, and I am a medical attendant.
Okay,
Judge,
and
could you have it speak up a little bit, and we'll post the
All
microphone.
right, if you can speak up, please.
It's the black mic with the cover.
It's the one with the cover on it.
I'm William McLean, and I'm a medical attendant.
and how long have you been a medical examiner?
About 10 years.
Generally, how does one become a medical examiner?
After high school, when obtained a degree from a university. In my case, I got a Bachelor of Science in Biology from University of Texas in Arlington. And then I attended medical school and obtained my medical degree from the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. I completed an anatomic and clinical pathology residency at the University of Texas Health Science Center here in San Antonio. Then I did a one-year fellowship in forensic pathology at the medical examiner's office here in Bexar County. And I've been practicing since. I'm board certified in anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, and forensic pathology.
And since you completed the residency and certifications and qualifications, and that's where the 10 years of working as a medical examiner started after all of that, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And where have you served as a medical examiner in the past?
I worked for almost 3 years at Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office, and then back here in San Antonio for a little over 5 years. And I've now been working for the Davidson County Medical Examiner's Office in Tennessee for a little more than 1 year.
When did you work as a medical, as an associate or assistant medical examiner in the Bexar County office?
What do you call them? I think the term is assistant medical examiner here. I can't remember.
Okay, and when did you start working as an assistant medical examiner in Bexar County?
That was June of 2015.
And about 6 years, so
Up until the end of September 2020.
and so you were working in that capacity as a medical examiner in the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office in the fall of 2015, in October of 2015.
Yes, sir.
What does a medical examiner do?
Well, the simplest way to define it is just to say that I examine the remains of deceased individuals in order to determine their cause of death, and then to classify it into a manner of death. And then the other major function is to confirm the identification of the decedent in question.
Okay. And you yourself, you don't confirm that identity. Does that happen through the process within the standard business practices of the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office?
It is.
And in general, the process of performing an autopsy and confirming identity, is that done whether it's an unfortunate citizen, a homeless person is found out in a park, or a shooting or anything like that? Is that consistent throughout the process of examining the body, identifying it, and determining the cause of death?
It is.
Were you working in your capacity as a medical examiner with the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office on October the 22nd, 2015.
Yes.
And did you work on and perform an autopsy under case number 2015-2243?
I believe that I did, yes.
Okay. In general, how is an autopsy conducted? What are the stages and steps that you go through to perform it?
Sure. In a generic hypothetical situation, when a person has been deemed to be a medical examiner's case, then that body is transported to the medical examiner's office and kept in the cooler. Then in the morning, the workload, the cases began at about 8 o'clock in the morning. We open the body bag, we examine, do a cursory examination with the body as is, as we say. Then, depending on the situation, we document the clothing, any medical paraphernalia like intubations or IV access, those kinds of things. We observe and collect any potential trace evidence if that's necessary. Then we collect other evidence we might need, like fingernail clippings or sexual assault kits if the case indicates it. We'll remove the clothing, potentially perform x-rays if needed. Then we document any kinds of injuries, any birthmarks, tattoos, scars, those kinds of outstanding things. Hair color, eye color. Basically, we complete the external examination. When that's done, if needed, we may wash the body in order to remove any debris that is obscuring potential injuries or identifying marks. When that's done, we collect blood and vitreous fluid samples from the eye for our toxicological studies. When that's done, then we begin the internal examination with the Y incision that you're probably familiar with. Reflect that skin and tissue. We document and examine the placement of the internal organs, potential trauma. So open the rib cage, document those organs. We remove them one at a time, weigh them. Then I cut them on a cutting board at a station, documenting any kinds of pathological processes or injuries that have occurred. Once done with the body, basically from the tongue to the pelvis, then we open the cranial cavity by incising the scalp and reflecting it, observing any kind of trauma to the scalp. Open the calvarium or the skull cap. We examine the intracranial contents, which of course includes the brain, and kind of hemorrhages or injuries to the brain are documented. The brain's removed and weighed and cut also to take a look at the internal structures and document any kind of injuries there. And then a final survey of the skeletal elements to identify any kind of trauma that's there.
And that whole process, which we've already testified is repeated in every case, circumstance that comes to DME. The purpose of all of those tests and the nuance, what is the purpose? What are you trying to learn from all of that?
Sure, the entire process is designed to identify any pathological processes that are going on, be they of natural origin, traumatic origin, or any other way, all with the goal of identifying the cause of death and then directing us to categorizing that into a manner of death.
Okay. It would be fair to say that sometimes you don't know if something may be a crime until you make that determination and cause of death.
That's right.
You had mentioned documenting in a report. So do you routinely make a report of the autopsies that you perform?
Yes.
And did you make in a report on the autopsy you performed in case number 2015-2243?
I've got to stipulate that I don't have any of our case number record here in front of me to be certain of that particular case. But if I did perform an autopsy on that particular case number, then I did make a report of that case. I just can't remember particular numbers, better names.
Okay. Now approach the witness, Sharon.
Yes.
Dr. McLean, I'm showing you what has been filed with the court as a business record in compliance with Texas Rule of Evidence 8036-90210, which is marked as State's Exhibit number 127 for identification. If you would flip through the entirety of 127 for identification, please tell me if you're familiar with it. Correction. If I can ask, what is the last time you were aware of?
We are on 130.
Correction then. And then my previous to say States Exhibit 130 for identification. What is States 130 for identification?
This is a copy of the autopsy report that I created, as well as evidence release form, the cause of manner death statement, and the investigative report that's generated by the medical examiner's office, and a CD on the back of it.
Okay. When you perform an autopsy, aside from your written report, do you document or collect your findings and examination any other way? Do you take pictures?
I do.
And did you take pictures in the examination here?
I did.
And those pictures, to your knowledge, are they transferred to different agencies in the process by way of a CD or DVD?
That is a common way that we transfer them to other agencies.
Okay. And if I show you the custodian of records for the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office that establishes that the 16 pages of the autopsy and one disc that appear to be your complete report and disc.
It does.
Move to introduce States 130 into evidence. I tender to defense for inspection.
We have no objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit number 130 is admitted.
And Doctor, I will bring you, and have you and I met and prepared about this case to prepare for your testimony today?
Yes, sir.
Did we look at some of the photographs that are contained on the disc that is part of States 130 in that preparation?
We did, yes.
I'm showing you what is marked as States Exhibit number 131 for identification. Do you recognize what States 131 is?
Yes, sir.
What is States 131 for identification?
It's a print out of the thumbnails of the photographs that were taken at the scene and the photographs that I took during the autopsy for case 15-22-43.
Okay, and so to assist us as we review your report, if you'll use States 130, which is admitted into evidence, and then refer to, you may talk about the numbers of certain pictures off of 131, use that to guide you. For the record, Your Honor, I've tendered a copy of States 131 for identification for defense so they can follow along. And we will proceed. So who was the subject of your examination and autopsy in case number 2015-2243?
Her name is Paula Mendez Boyd.
And as you've already testified, that part of the process of the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office is to identify an individual, document their age, etc. What age was Ms. Boyd when you performed your autopsy?
She was 75.
Okay. What time date and time did you perform your autopsy when you started?
I started the autopsy at 9 a.m. on October 22nd, 2015.
Right? Was a representative of the San Antonio Police Department present?
Yes,
Who was that?
that was Detective Cardenas.
In general, on page 1 of your examination, how tall and generally describe Miss Paulita?
As received in our office, she was nude and weighed 151 pounds and measured 63 inches.
So 60 inches is 5 feet, so 63 would be 5'3" inches.
That's correct.
You have previously testified that if necessary, once you unzip the bag and examine the body, you check for obvious things, and then I heard you say, did you say cut the clothes if necessary?
Sometimes we cut them off, or if we don't have to cut them off, we'll leave them intact and take them off.
Did you have to cut any clothes off Miss Paulita?
No, sir.
The jury has heard some testimony from the EMTs that put her dead. If you could just define some terms for us, rigor mortis, being present in the extremities but easily broken. What does that mean? And what exactly is rigor mortis?
Rigor mortis is the stiffening of the muscles that begins at the time of death. And it's a complex molecular process that results from the energy inside of our muscle fibers and our muscle cells burning itself out. So for a muscle to contract, for one to contract, another must relax. It's all levers that control our movement. So whatever position the body is in at the time of death, if not moved, then those muscles will eventually gradually get firmer and firmer as rigor mortis becomes more established and becomes more fixed, as we call it. And the opposite of that would be if rigor mortis was unfixed, meaning when I move a deceased person's arm or leg, it just moves freely. That is the process occurs on a time scale. So as time passes, the muscles stiffen and stiffen and stiffen until they reach a maximum, and then it starts to break down. Those cells in the muscle fibers will decay, and that rigor mortis, or that rigidity, becomes less fixed, less strong or weaker, and the arm is easier to manipulate. So in Miss Boyd's case, she had rigor mortis, meaning that there was some stiffness to her arm, and it would generally stay in that whatever position it was in or in her leg. But with a little bit of force, it's easy to break the rigor and move her arm whichever way I want to.
Okay. Now, you were conducting this examination on what would be Thursday, October 22nd, 2015, correct?
Well, I know it was October 22nd. If you say it was Thursday, I'll have to take the word for it.
All right. Thank you. Is one of the objectives in an autopsy to also try to establish some unknowns, like particular time of death, maybe facts and circumstances?
Well, as far as time of death, one of our roles is to help corroborate that to whatever degree we can. It isn't one of our top priorities, but if we do document things like rigor mortis and rigor mortis for that particular reason.
Okay, and this body was transported, and again, you conducted it on the 22nd, correct?
I did the autopsy on the 22nd, yes.
Does the medical examiner's office have, do you go to the field to the bodies yourself, or are you just in the lab?
Well, I personally occasionally go to the scenes. I enjoy and find it important. Not all medical examiners do that, but we do have representatives from our office who are certified investigators who go to the scene and act as our eyes and ears on scene.
And so they are part of your office?
Yes, sir.
And is it consistent to say that if they document things, take pictures, they're looking for things that you would need to know to reach your conclusions?
That is true.
Approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
So, sir, I'm showing you what has already been marked and entered into evidence. As State's Exhibit number 83. And are you able to see that State's Exhibit number 83, sir?
Yes,
And there's already been evidence that this is Ms. Paulita Boyd at the place she was recovered from. And I didn't ask you lividity. What is lividity?
lividity, which is also known as liver mortis, refers to the settling of blood in the body, that part of the body that is closest to the surface of the earth. And so, for example, if a person is lying on his or her back when he or she passes away, then that blood will pull, gravity causes it to settle because it's no longer being pumped through the arteries and veins, and gravity will cause it to settle on that person's backside in that particular example. And it just settles into capillaries, the tiny little blood spaces just underneath the skin. So we see it as a pink, red, dark red discoloration with blanching or blank spaces wherever the skin is touching, where the body is touching the ground, for example, or whatever surface.
And so the meaning of that, so that lividity, that blood settling as the vessels decompose. The way I've talked with some of your colleagues, so if you found lividity in the back, but the body's found lying face down, could you draw any conclusions from that?
Certainly.
What would that conclusion be?
Well, that would indicate to me that this person had been on his or her back at some point, the time of death, between death and when someone saw them face down. And that would indicate that the body had been moved after death.
Okay. So then so these are photographs that were taken by the examiner. You have them on 131, the sheet. And so the lividity that you notice in your report, does the photograph support that finding of lividity in the report?
It does. You can see some of the lividity in this photo, yes.
Okay. Would it be, can you draw a conclusion she was found on her back from other photographs? So is that consistent?
It is, yes. The posterior lividity, the lividity on the posterior surface of her body is consistent with the position her body was in as documented in the very first photos that my investigator took at the scene.
Okay. And other than that, on the general external examination, anything else remarkable in that first paragraph of the first page, the external examination?
No, nothing too extraordinary.
Okay. Now, the next section that you look at in your report, evidence of injury. From your initial cursory examination, once the body was removed from the body bag, means of transport, did you see signs of injury?
I did, even before we removed her from the body bag. Upon unzipping the bag, it was obvious that she had some trauma.
And where do you recall seeing the trauma?
The most obvious was to her face, face and neck area.
And did you document what you saw in your autopsy report?
I did.
What did you see?
There were many injuries. There was hemorrhage on the eyeballs, as what we call subconjunctival hemorrhage. Also, fine petechia and coarse petechia. Those are the little areas of hemorrhage on the eyeball or on the eyelids. That was present on both eyes. The forehead had a contusion right at the hairline. The nasal bridge was depressed with a fracture and a red contusion or a bruise there around it. There was a small laceration there, and a laceration is a tear of the skin. The inside of the right eye, the soft tissue around the eye had pink contusion. The right side of the nasal bridge had an abrasion or a scrape of the skin. The underside of the nose had another abrasion or a scrape. The left upper lip had full thickness lacerations, in particular near the corner of the mouth here, the oral commissures is called. The entire upper lip had multiple abrasions and lacerations, so scrapes and tears of the skin that went through what's called the vermilion surface, that soft pink area, and then onto the lingual surface, which is the inside of the upper lip, really a confluent, meaning merging together hairs throughout the entire upper lip. The lower lip also had abundant full thickness lacerations or tears. The medial right side of the chin had an abrasion just below the lower lip. Then around the left eye, there was bruising and swelling around the left eye. There was an abrasion on the left upper eyelid, or scraping of the skin. Another laceration at the lateral aspect of the left eyebrow, a tear through the skin. In this area, the left cheek was visibly swollen and erythematous or red. The external ear on the left side was bruised. The right side of the chin had red and purple bruising that extended to the right edge. I'm sorry, that's on the right, to the right edge of the lower lip. The right cheek had a pink bruise over the angle of the mandible, which is right here where the jaw makes a turn.
And doctor, tell you what, I think we try to do this smart.
Sure.
From everything that you started to describe from the initial observation, did you also document these photographically in pictures?
I did.
Which numbers, and let's start back to the top with the head and neck, left eye, right eye, which would be the best pictures in your opinion to show the jury exactly what you saw in your examination?
Sure. It looks like photograph number 53 would be a good start.
Okay.
Would you like me to just continue listening along?
Yes, sir. We're marking as you talk.
Sure. 55. 57.
Put up, sir.
Sure.
You said 57?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
59. 63.
Okay.
66. 64. 67. 68. 69. Regarding the external thing.
Yes, sir. And we'll take it in stages. So, Madam Pro Chair,
Yes.
I am showing you what has been marked as State's Exhibits number 143 through 142 for identification. Do 143, 133 through 142 for identification fairly and accurately what you reflect what you called out in the photographs. And who took these photographs?
I did.
In the photographs that you took in the autopsy you conducted on Mrs. Alderman Des Boyd on October 22nd, 2015.
They do.
Move to admit states 133 through 142 into evidence. I tender them to the defense for inspection.
We have no objection.
All right, and states exhibits numbers 133 through 142 is admitted into evidence.
And now publisher.
Yes.
Doctor, I'm showing you what is admitted into evidence. It states 133. And what does 133 show us?
So this is a photograph of Miss Boyd's left eye with the eyelid reflected superiorly. And you can see the hemorrhage, the dark red hemorrhage that is on the surface of the left eye, as well as the hemorrhages scattered on the conjunctival surface, that moist inner surface of the upper eyelid. So that was the main purpose of this photograph, but you can also appreciate some of the swelling around the left eye and the injury to the bridge of the nose there.
And states 134 for identification.
This is a photograph of Miss Boyd's right eye with the lower eyelid reflected inferiorly, and it specifically illustrates the petechial hemorrhages that are on that inner surface of the eyelid.
And you said petechial hemorrhage. What is petechial hemorrhage?
Petechial hemorrhages or petechiae are pinpoint hemorrhages that take place when the capillaries that are just beneath the surface rupture. So this can happen on your skin surface. Sometimes it's more difficult to see with pigmentation and that sort of thing, but on the inner surfaces of the eyelids, as well as the surfaces of the eyeball, and on the surfaces of the gingiva in the mouth, or the inner surfaces of the lips, are great places to see petechial hemorrhages. These hemorrhages occur when the pressure inside the blood vessel becomes so high that the blood vessel wall, which is only one cell thick, bursts and allows the blood to spill out into the surrounding tissues. You can imagine a dam on a river, the river overflows the banks of the dam and the water seeps into the surrounding trees and bushes. It's a similar kind of effect that occurs. These are classically associated with strangulations, chokings, hangings, that kind of thing that causes an occlusion of the blood vessels going into and out of the head there in the neck.
And from looking at 130, correction, states 133 of the left eye, is that a more severe form of what we see in 134 with petechia?
Well, there's a couple of ways that you end up with this confluent merging subconjunctival hemorrhage that we see in that left eye. And it could be thousands and thousands of these little petechia that are so close together that they sort of merge into one bigger area of hemorrhage. That's possible. This could also be from not only that, but also direct blunt trauma to that eye. And just like you would get a bruise to the skin here below your eye, like this boy has, you could also get bruising or a contusion there on the actual eyeball. So I believe that her left eye looks that way because of both of those mechanisms.
The state showing you now states 135 for identification. What is depicted in states 135 for identification?
In this photograph, it's this boy's lower lip is reflected outwardly and inferiorly. This is that pink inner surface is what we call the vermilion surface. It's also then going into the lingual or the inner surface. We can see the large gaping laceration that really occupies almost the entire lip. You can see that there's to the right, on the right part of her lower lip, you can still see that pinky smooth surface that you can all feel on the inner surface of your lip. Now, oh, I'm sorry, that's on her left, the right side of the photo. On her right, you can see that smooth inner surface is completely obliterated and torn apart. You see the purple areas there on her left side, and that hemorrhage bruising there. Coincidentally or incidentally, I should say, we can see on the nose there in the top left corner of this photograph, you can see some scrapes or abrasions on her nose. You can see the abrasion there on the upper lip. You can see that her tongue is clenched between her teeth. And you can see the laceration, the tear in the skin that is at the left oral commissure, where the upper and lower lips meet on the left side.
In your experience, doctor, what could cause the tearing of the vermilion, that thin layer to the lip? What would cause that type of trauma?
You know, a blunt impact, be it a blunt object striking that area or that area striking the blunt object like a wall or a floor. Combined with the injuries to the nose and the upper lip, those are the kinds of injuries that are classically associated with having a hand or an object smashed over the face, ground onto the face, or the face being ground into a surface like the floor.
Showing you what is marked as introduced already in evidence as states 136. And what does states 136 show us?
This is the upper lip reflected outwardly and superiorly. So we can see the underside. It specifically is mostly illustrating the tears, the lacerations on the inner surface of the upper left side of her lip.
You had stated earlier with states 135 that the pictures show her teeth being clenched. I think you said that on 130, yes, 135.
Yes, sir.
So is this here when you're talking the teeth being clenched?
Well, the white part in that photograph is her gums. Just above that, you can see a few of her teeth in the mandibular, the lower jaw, to the left of the photo of your pen. There, those are her teeth. You can see 3 of them. And then that's her tongue. Oh, I can write on this. No good. That is her tongue. These are her teeth. So that that's her lower jaw. So that's her tongue clenched between the lower teeth and upper teeth. You are not able to see her upper teeth in this photograph because the upper lip is covering it.
And that's how and the tongue was clenched between the teeth on your examining table on the 22nd.
Yes, sir.
What could cause the tongue to be clenched between top and bottom teeth?
Well, a million reasons. It could just be coincidence that maybe people die with their tongue sticking out between their teeth. It is not uncommon for the tongue to be protruding and clenched between the teeth in strangulation cases, hanging cases, anything where there's that pressure being applied to the neck that causes the face to be congested for a person to be trying to exert some energy in order to maybe get out of that situation, or as they're struggling, to get out of that situation, and their jaw is being forced upward through their teeth against their will. Through the tongue. So.
I apologize. You used the term there, strangulation, when you describe these effects, the effect of the tongue being between the teeth. And what is strangulation?
Strangulation is when the blood flow into and out of the brain, and perhaps even the airway itself, or the trachea, are occluded by a variety of different ligatures. Could be a rope, could be a hand, forearm, a knee, a leg, a stool, or a stick, and anything of that nature that is occluding the vessels in the neck and or the airway.
And so far, the exhibits that have been published to the jury, 132 through 136, are they consistent with strangulation?
Well, the injuries that have been illustrated so far are consistent with blunt trauma to the face, mostly. There are a few things that have been illustrated that suggest or are consistent with what one would expect in a strangulation also.
And now, approach your
Yes.
doctor, I believe there on your screen, you may be able to see something that allow you to clear the highlighted item you drew. Now showing states 137. And what does states 137 show us?
So this is a photograph of the right side of Miss Boyd's face and neck. It also captures a little bit of her upper central chest. And this photograph was meant to illustrate the abrasions or the scraping on the right external ear. Here. There's also more of this scraping or abrasions that come along the right side of the face from the ear, along the arm of the mandible to the angle of the mandible. We can also see that red and pink bruising that's on the underside of the jawline there, on the upper neck and the underside of the chin. That is generally parallel and horizontal almost. And then in the center of her upper chest or the lower neck area, we see some more of the abrasion or the scraping of the skin.
So that coloration, is there any particular cause of that? Is that the same type of coloration around the neck as there is around the right ear and then the ear itself? Is that all consistent the same?
Those have a similar appearance and a similar texture when touched, of waxiness, a dry, waxy texture, and that yellowish color, that brown yellow color, which is distinctly different from the other injuries there on the underside that are pink and red on the underside of her jaw.
Showing you states 138. What is shown here?
This photograph is mostly the left side of Miss Boyd's face. You can see just how swollen the entire left side of her face is. It's markedly protuberant and protruding outward. You also can see the bruising around that left eye and just how swollen that is. You can appreciate the depression of the nasal bridge here, where those bones were palpably fractured. There were some lacerations or tears of the skin in that area. You see the scraping on the underside of the nose again. And then just another illustration of the tearing through this part of the face, just to the outside of the lips and more of the injuries to the lips. Again, you see the tongue protruding from between the teeth, and you can make out some of the bruising here on this left side of her neck or the underside of her jaw.
The bruising on the left side of the neck, is that consistent in 138? Is that consistent with the bruising on the right side of the neck in 137?
Yes, those are similar injuries.
And with both that bruising under the neck, is that consistent with strangulation?
It is, yes, it's highly suggestive of strangulation, yes.
Strangulation by ligature or hand or body part or any object?
All of the above, any of the above.
States 137. What does states 137 tell us?
So this photograph, again, documents many injuries we've already covered, but I think it best illustrates this, the bruising and scraping on the inside of that left eye. And again, it illustrates the depressed fracture through the kind of central part of the nose.
If I could go back to 138. The swelling around the left eye and the left jaw. In your experience, what would cause that type of swelling, that type of injury?
Well, there's blood beneath there. That's what's caused that swelling, is the hemorrhage, leaking of blood into the soft tissue of the cheek. And that was caused by a blunt object striking that part of her face, or her face striking a blunt object.
And so could that result as striking with a hand could cause that?
Certainly.
Striking with an unknown object, could it cause that type of damage?
So long as that unknown object is firm and blunt.
Would a fist cause, would that be firm, could cause that type of damage?
It would, yes.
States 140. What does states 140 show us?
This photograph is, I feel, a better illustration of the bruising on the underside of the left side of Miss Boyd's chin and jawline. More of those generally horizontal, almost parallel pink linear bruises or contusions.
States 141.
This is a photograph that is documenting that dry, waxy abrasion on the central lower neck / upper chest area. And there's, again, sort of a almost parallel effect going on across there. There's also this bruising here over the right clavicle or collarbone.
States 142. And if you want to clear your screen.
Again, so this photograph was specifically to document that bruising there with a little scrape or abrasion, and then another small one here, lower on the central chest.
Did those pictures, did that take up all of the second page, the head and neck area of trauma?
It did, with the exception of the internal examination for portion of the head and neck, which is paragraphs 4, 5,
Okay.
and 7.
What page are we looking at?
This is on page 2.
Okay, so paragraph 4, 5, and 7. And are there pictures, did you document your findings in those paragraphs pictorially?
Most of those findings, yes.
Are there additional pictures that we haven't published yet?
That's correct.
Okay, which ones should we look for?
78, 79, and 80.
'78, '79, and '80, that is after you've transected the skull?
That's after we've incised the scalp and reflected it.
And by reflecting it, what do you mean by reflecting it?
So we make an incision that goes from behind one ear up over the crown of the head and to behind the other ear. And then the front portion of the scalp is reflected anteriorly, turned inside out, almost like a sock off your foot, so to speak. The backside is then reflected posteriorly, and this allows visualization of the calvarium, or the top of the skull, as well as the muscles on each side, those pectoralis muscles that help you chew. And it also shows us the underside of the scalp, where there's no hair or pigmentation to obscure potential bruising hemorrhages that can be missed externally.
Madam Pro Shine?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm showing you what is marked as State's Exhibit number 143 for identification is, I didn't print C9A, is that what you identified as photograph number 78 in State's 143?
It is.
Identification. Move to introduce State's 143 in evidence. I tender 143 the defense for inspection.
I'm sorry.
No,
All right, State's Exhibit number 143 is admitted.
And published.
Yes.
And from what you described on page 2, paragraphs 4 through 6 of your report, what does 143 show us?
This photograph is, might be easier if we rotated it 90 degrees. Go. There you go. So in this photograph, what is at this portion here is the kind of top and posterior aspect of Miss Boyd's skull. This here is the posterior portion of the scalp, which has been reflected posteriorly and inferiorly. This black wooden block is what we use to support the head for our examination. We can see in this photograph, this area here is just confluent bruising, hemorrhage into the tissue that's caused that reddish discoloration.
And in your experience, what would cause that type of trauma, given what we've seen on the exterior skin and the face? You previously described injuries consistent with, say, a hand or an object thrusting up against the lips, tearing the vermilion. Is what we see in 143 a consequence of that pressure to the front of the face? It's on the back of the head, given that she was found on her back.
Well, what I'm confident of is that a blunt object struck that portion of her head, or that portion of her head struck a blunt object, be it the floor, be it a hand put on the back of her head, or striking her in the back of the head. Of course, this, given her position at the scene and lying on her back, could have occurred at that time. It may have also occurred at any other time during the struggle that she seems to have been involved with immediately preceding her death.
May I approach?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, it was just an eye instead of we. All right, ladies and gentlemen, jury, we're gonna take our lunch break at this time. I know normally I have us come back at 2 in this court, but because we had a late start because of our technical issues and because of other things that were happening unrelated to this case, we're gonna come back at 1:30. Remember what I told everyone. You've heard some evidence. You're not allowed to discuss it with anyone. You're not allowed to see anything on television or wherever it may be on any type of media related to this case. You're not to start talking about this case or deliberating until I give you instructions to do so. Does everyone understand? All right, everyone, please rise for the jury. All right, everybody be seated. Doctor, the rule has been invoked, so that means that you cannot discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to talk to are attorneys for the state and our attorneys for the defense. And if I can have you back here slightly before 1.